Last month's Road Train Classic is one of my favourites. It was also called Outback Odyssey. We're loading cattle at VRD, or Victoria River Downs, with Road Trains of Australia, while the fleet was still running under the original Buntine colours. We shift cattle out of the Channel Country in South West Queensland and sheep out around Longreach. This is a real outback treat, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did when I made it. In this program, we'll take a focus on the place of road trains in livestock haulage throughout Northern Australia and a good bit more. We'll haul cattle from Victoria River Downs and load them on a giant cattle ship bound for Egypt. We'll visit Alice Springs and take part in a Truckies Reunion and see one of the finest groups of veteran trucks ever collected in one place in Australia. From the northern town of Cloncurry, we'll haul essential freight to Century Zinc Mine in Australia's Gulf Country. In Western Queensland, in the heart of Australia's outback, we travel deep into the arid southwest to load fat bullocks from a Channel Country cattle station. And we load 24 decks of sheep on the Outer Barcoo. G'day, I'm Bruce Honeywell, and thanks for joining us on Road Train 2000. This monument denotes the start of the Buntine Highway. It runs from here all the way south, about 165 kilometres to Top Springs. We'll be heading down to Top Springs shortly, and from there out to Victoria River Down Station to load 5 road trains of cattle, and we'll haul those cattle to Darwin for the live export trade. Road Trains of Australia, or RTA, is the company that's carrying out this lift. RTA has an ownership ancestry going back to Noel Buntine himself. The Buntine Highway was named after Noel Buntine, one of the fathers of the road train movement in the Northern Territory, Australia, indeed the world. This road out to VRD and Wave Hill has literally carried millions of cattle over the years. Today, this first stretch is a narrow bitumen, and it's a far cry from the early days where old-timers talk about a 100-kilometre stretch taking 12 hours to cross. Top Springs is a tiny, remote settlement in the Victoria River District. It's little more than a pub and a roadhouse. We've caught up with one of the RTA trucks heading out to Victoria River Downs. We stop at Top Springs for a quick cold drink before carrying on the next hour or so to Coles Yard, where the cattle are to be loaded. Loading the road trains with cattle starts mid-afternoon, just when the breeze takes the sting out of the heat of the tropical day. There's 30 decks to load, and this will take most of the remaining afternoon. Victoria River Downs, or VRD, is a cattle station steeped in the history of the Northern Territory. Today, John Brosnan is the manager.
VRD currently is owned by Janet Holmes Court, which is an incorporation of Heytesbury Beef. We run under that company. Janet owns approximately 7 other stations as well as VRD. Currently VRD is 4,500 square kilometres, which we run 35,000 head of cattle. The ones that we're actually loading on the truck, they're going to Egypt. They're the heavier end of the market. They're like them 360 plus well covered to go over there.
Kenny Smith is the RTA road boss for this lift. He works the main gate, overseeing the loading process. And similarly, station manager John Brosnan keeps an eye on his stock workers.
We employ 25 people here. There's 12 in the stock camp, then plus your ball runners, grader drivers. We operate a store, a post office back at the main homestead, and yeah, 25 employees, that's it, yeah. We're a breeding station. We also take our cattle through to fatten them for the Asian market. We run 14,000 breeders. We have a calving percentage of 80% every year, so it's a pretty big operation just with the one stock camp. The mob we're loading now, they're sort of 2-year-old steers. We'll weigh them in Darwin. They'll probably average out 410, 420 kg. We would truck out approximately 11,000 head a year. We use RTA as our sole carriers. We get very good service from them. As we try not to lift too many in one big hit, it's very hard for any trucking company to supply a huge amount of trucks at any one time, especially for the very large export market now. If we can sort of keep down to lifting out 1,000 head at a time, it suits us. It's a lot better for our cattle and definitely a lot better for the truck drivers. They get a chance to have a bit of a blow along the way.
James Francis Murphy is the operations manager for Road Trains of Australia. He's universally known as Zipper. He reckons the livestock haulage business has changed over recent years.
The exporters don't tend to depot cattle no more. It's more direct ship from property to ship, which makes it very difficult for us, you know.
Pressure from animal welfare lobbies has also forced change.
I think it's improved 100%. Like a lot of the big pastoral houses are going for quality assurance. We're in the process of having QA, you know, we're just getting audited now. A lot of our drivers are ex-station people, like they've handled cattle long before they come to us. And, you know, we've had a program involved where we put young fellas out the station first to learn about cattle, handling of cattle and all that before they even start driving, you know. So it has improved 100%, you know. Welfare of cattle are our main aim is to sort of look after the cattle and get people working for us that do know something about cattle and that sort of business. You know? It's sort of something you've got to follow and you just keep trying to improve it all the time.
The trucks are loaded and start on the 750-kilometre run to Darwin. The track from VRD is slow, hot and dusty. These conditions on dusty roads challenge the most experienced drivers. Hit a washout too fast here and it could mean disaster coming from a broken axle or a collapsed suspension. A breakdown like this would mean cattle having to wait in scorching heat until another truck could be sent out for transshipping.
This year we got 5 new Macks with signature engines in. We're just going to try them, see how they go, you know. But generally we've got a mix of Macks, Kenworths and Western Stars, you know. But we're tending to lean more towards Mack at the moment. The signature engines, we're having a little bit of teething problems with them, but you know, Cummins have been real good, and we're having a head problem here with them, cracking heads and all that, but they're rectifying the problem, you know, under warranty, and sort of we're not losing that much downtime with them. So, you know, sort of with any new gear we buy, I suppose we had teething problems with everything, Kenworths, Western Stars, the whole lot, you know, so they're no better, no worse in a sense. We've still got, I think it's 5 V8s left, which will go at the end of this year, and then virtually the whole fleet's Cummins. We use a lot of K series, we've still got a lot of Ks, 600s, and that's about it. You know, we've got 1 610 Mack and like 575, but they'll go this year.
The sun sets and the dust swirls like a fog across the landscape, making driving conditions even more hazardous. The RTA drivers are continually in a state of high alert while driving these rugged, rough dirt roads. It's well after dark before the trucks get back to Top Springs, still with 600 kilometres to Darwin. After a night travelling through the bushlands in the Northern Territory, the trucks roll into the Darwin region early the following morning. The cattle are unloaded into holding yards, all within 30 kilometres of the Darwin wharf. The cattle are watered and fed in the yards and held as the mob grows to more than 6,000, waiting for the arrival of the cattle ship at the weekend. It's the weekend in Darwin. The livestock carrier Ballard 3 has berthed at the new East Darwin Port Complex. Saturday afternoon, in the Darwin hinterland, the road trains gather in large numbers. The cattle rattle onto the trucks as the 20-hour loading task begins. These cattle are becoming used to walking up and down loading ramps now and settling into a life behind bars. Before transshipping to the cattle carrier, the loads are weighed at Darwin Wharf's weighbridge. In the fading light, the trucks finally swing onto the broad expanse of Darwin's new wharf complex. Pastoral company Wesfarmers Dalgety has taken on the contract to organising the supply of cattle to the ship. John Fraser is the Wesfarmers Dalgety manager from Katherine.
Well, Dalgety is contracted to Livestock Shipping Service from Perth to coordinate the supply of a bit over 6,000 head of cattle to load the ship here today, and we've done that through our Katherine office with some assistance from Mount Isa. Yeah, we've covered most of the Northern Territory and stuck into a little bit of Queensland to fill the ship. Of course, with 6,000 cattle, you need a lot of trucks, you need a lot of coordination to sort of get 6,000 cattle on one wharf at one time. So, yeah, it's been spread over a 2-week period, and we've sort of had cattle in hand here for the last 4 days, rehydrating them in the local export yards. Our contract finishes right here, but the cattle are bound for Egypt, along with about 65,000 sheep on there, and about 580 head of cattle they put on in Fremantle as well.
The trucks work through the night as every available road train works the short loops from the holding yard to the ship. It's now Sunday morning, and I asked Zipper how progress is going.
Well, we're pretty much on schedule. Everything's going fine. Clients are happy. The boat's loading well, so sort of can't ask for much more than that at the moment. We started yesterday afternoon about 5 o'clock, and I think the boys went through till about 2 this morning and restarted again at 4 o'clock from another holding yards. Altogether, we've got 6,200 head we're putting on the boat. We should have it done by just after lunch today. And I suppose we've been collecting cattle for about a week now from different various stations. From Helen Springs, we brought up 66 decks out of there. They were real good cattle, weighed real well. Oban in Queensland, we bought roughly about 48 decks up from there. VRD, Victoria River District, we bought maybe 50, 60 decks up from there. Anthony's Lagoon across the Barclay Tablelands, we brought cattle from there for it. Altogether, it's been about 2 weeks putting it all together. Logistically, it's not really that hard, but big boats tend to be a bit of a problem at the moment because they take up that many resources. It's that hard to do because they do not depot cattle that much up here no more. It's more direct ship, and which makes it very difficult for us. You tend to have to use more and more trucks, and then you're working flat out, and then you stop, then you work flat out, then you stop. It's not consistent like it used to be when you were depoting cattle. We've got a real good crew of blokes. Excellent, really. Cannot fault them, no whinges, no nothing, you know. They'll be looking forward to a bit of a break. I don't know how much of a break they'll get, but they'll get a bit of a break today anyway after this is finished.
1,500 kilometres south of Darwin is Alice Springs, home to Australia's National Road Transport Hall of Fame. We're just in time for a reunion that brought truckies together from all over Australia. Never have there been more road train drivers, operators and former drivers collected in one place.
The reunion came about initially. We were looking at some sort of special way we could put our 5th birthday together, and also with the end of the millennium or start of the millennium, whichever way we like to look at it. We thought it was an ideal opportunity to celebrate the last 100 years of transport in Australia, and in our small way make people aware that road transport has played a major role in the development of Australia, particularly over the last 100 years.
Liz Martin is the chair of the National Road Transport Hall of Fame.
It's been quite a mammoth task. Initially we expected to attract around about 500 people to Alice Springs, and at this point we have around about 5,000 people.
And I'll just go ziggy-zaggy with my fingers crossed, because that's how my mum drives.
One of the prized exhibits at the Hall of Fame is road train pioneer Kurt Johansson's original prime mover. After World War II, he converted it from a tank transporter to the body truck you see today. Kurt Johansson pioneered the use of road transport for livestock haulage in Central Australia. He invented the concept of self-steering trailers to go through the scrub before the days of beef roads. That note you hear comes from a bore casing exhaust and an empty bombshell as a muffler. Many onlookers claim that the weekend brought together the biggest collection of beautifully restored B-Model Macks ever. And holding her head high amongst them was Ruby, owned by the Hall of Fame and restored by Barry Clough.
Ruby's a B61 Mack that is significant, I think, to this area, or to the territory at least. It was relocated back to the Hall of Fame probably 6-7 years ago, and in disrepair, and just continually got worse. Anyway, I was associated with this truck in the 68. I bought it in 68. And it was a faithful truck, and I knew the owner that bought it, or who drove it out of Mack, Peter Lynch. And then a good friend of both Peter's and mine, Stratty Bloomfield, he owned it. He's not with us anymore, but it's just my contribution to the Hall of Fame. I just wanted to do that.
The highlight of the weekend was without doubt the Grand Parade through Alice Springs. To round off the parade day, there was an impromptu muster of the B-models and their drivers shunted into place. Even a forklift, so everyone can make use of this photo opportunity. Coming out of the Northern Territory through Mount Isa and heading east, you come to the small town of Cloncurry. Set in a red-brown landscape of the northwest, Cloncurry is a service centre to the Gulf region. This is a major cattle selling and trucking centre, particularly for Queensland cattle heading north for live export. Cloncurry was a sleepy cattle and transport town for more than a century, but the centre has been invigorated over the past 10 years with many mines being developed in the Carpentaria mineral province. Catching the wave of mining growth is Cloncurry-based Butt Haulage. This family business has grown from one road train just 4 years ago to 6 today, with contracts supplying freight services to various mines and regular line haul services between Townsville and Mount Isa. Former helicopter musterer Lance Butt is the driving force behind the business. After 7 years in the air, he went back to school to study agribusiness and then came home to help with his family transport operation. "4 a.m. Butt Haulage has outgrown its yard and uses several all around town, and we visit them all, picking up trailers, getting them into sequence. We've caught up with driver Paul Spring, and we're about to do a run from Cloncurry up to Pasminco's Century Zinc Mine in the Gulf region of northern Queensland. With the road train sorted out and 3 trailers attached, we pull out of Cloncurry. It's still an hour before daylight. sun finds us nearly 100 kilometres north of Cloncurry. The first section of road is a well-maintained sealed highway, often with 2 lanes. At the remote Birkenwills Roadhouse, there's time to check the tyres and the load and take a quick bite of breakfast. And all too soon it's time to hit the road again to maintain the schedule. The truck swings onto the road to Burketown. Lance Butt is running 5 Kenworth 650s, all with Cummins engines, either N14s or signatures, as in this truck on the Century run. The tanks carry dextrin, a chemical used in the extraction of zinc. The mine takes 2 tanks of this per day. Chemicals make up a large proportion of the freight to Pasminco. The road now is narrow, single-lane bitumen. All too soon, it'll be rough dirt. The end of the bitumen comes at the small community of Gregory Downs, where Paul, or Springy as he's mostly known, pulls over for a final gear check. The first obstacle is the steep banks of the Gregory River. The speed limit across the river is 5 kilometres per hour. However, a fully loaded road train will lose traction while pulling up the steep pinch on the other side of the river, so these vehicles are allowed to run the bridge at 35 kilometres per hour. The mine supplies an escort to hold traffic while the truck makes its run. Paul can't afford any mistakes here. He has to line his 62 wheels up in a dead straight line to cross the narrow wooden bridge. Without any guardrails, there's no margin for error here. Springy makes his run, unleashing the full power of the 600 horsepower signature. He's judged his speed just right, and the big engine pulls the 115-tonne gross load up the steep bank.
Come up out of Cloncurry, try and get up here every day. Sometimes we come up at night, get here early in the morning. When we load the tanks down in Cloncurry, they're usually loaded early hours of the morning and usually mid-morning, lunchtime when we get up to the mine. And it takes a couple of hours to pump them out and get the other trailer unloaded. And, yeah, generally about 5.5 hour drive up here. It's about 400 kilometres. It's about 80 kilometres of road, dirt road. They call it a road. It's a bit hard to call it that. It's only a goat track, really. Oh, well. Beats running down that coast road. Yeah, truck's pretty good, eh?
When did this truck come into service with Lance's fleet?
The truck's about 12 months old now. It's got 224,000 kilometres on it. 600 horsepower signature, 18 speed, double overdrive, road ranger, 52,000 pound diffs. It's fairly heavy gear, eh? But yeah, good to drive though. A little bit rough, but it's a bush truck. Trucks kept going 7 days a week. It generally puts in a relief driver on the weekend, gives you a day off so you can have a break. I like working out here. There's not too many people, not too many hassles. Suits me fine. I've been there and done all that coastal work, running up down the coast road, a little bit interstate. Too many people over there now. It's good up here. It's a little bit hot in summertime, but that's all right. We can put up with that.
Before driving into Century, Paul stops and drops the fine bull dust that is collected in his wheels. This stops the road train setting up a minor dust storm on the mine site as it goes about its deliveries. The Pasminco crew helps him to unload. The lead trailer is untarped. The 1-ton bags of chemicals removed. Springy hooks up the high-pressure air hoses to his tanks. The fine dextrin powder is force-blown into the silos, an operation taking around 2 hours to dump the 50-ton load from the 2 tanks. Century Zinc Mine is the largest zinc mine in Australia. It's amongst the top 3 biggest in the world, could well be the biggest. The zinc ore is amongst the world's cleanest, being free of pollution from iron compounds. Because of this, there's been a high demand for the concentrates from Europe. The concentrates are milled here at Century and are turned into a slurry and pumped through a long overland pipeline to Corumba, where they are dried and shipped. Century came online in the late 90s and has a life expectancy of around 20 years. The Kenworth is loaded with timber crates that are taken back to the coast for reuse. Oil pods are put on, again for recycling. And finally a container is lifted onto the lead trailer and it's time to head back towards Cloncurry.
People out there at Pasminco are pretty good, eh? They look after you pretty well. Quite often they'll bring in a bit of lunch and that. There's no drama there, they look after you. No, it's a good job, it's a pretty good run, eh? I like coming up here. I've done a few runs up to MacArthur River and a few other places around, been around a little bit. I like it up here, it's good. Very laid back sort of lifestyle. I just wouldn't mind if they'd done something about this bloody road.
It's late in the afternoon when we get back to the Gregory River. This time the truck can crawl across the narrow gutted bridge, keeping within the 5-kilometre speed. Even travelling slowly, the bridge takes skill and some careful lining up to cross safely. We pass through the little town of Gregory Downs. Then along the narrow sealed road and into the night to Cloncurry. While Springy's heading back for another trip to Century, we're now heading south towards Longreach. The landscape of Western Queensland fits perfectly the archetype of the Australian outback image. This is the land of wide brown plains, endless horizons, a land of cattle and sheep stations. Longreach is the largest centre for outback Queensland. The town has a population of around 3,000 and it's the service centre for a region as big as Germany and France combined. The National Stockman's Hall of Fame has its home in Longreach, and it's in Western Queensland that the national airline Qantas was inaugurated. Longreach settles on the Thomson River, part of a great river system of inland Australia. It swells into immense inland seas during wet times, but never reaches an ocean. And of course, Longreach is a major centre for transport, with a modern railhead and several trucking companies calling the town home.
Yeah, the trip you're doing tomorrow, Bruce, there'll be 2 of them go down there with probably 6 decks on each, down to, you got to load about 20 or 40 k's this side of Birdsville to come up here to the rail. They'll be all fat bullocks. They tell me the road's getting a bit rugged down there now. But
Gary Ballard runs Ballard Transport. His business has been running for 25 years, concentrating mainly on livestock, but diversifying into tipper work to meet the needs of Western Queensland contracts. We're travelling with Ballard driver Rob Morton in this mint condition Kenworth T950. We'll be traversing most of Outback Queensland in a 700-kilometre run down to near the southwestern town of Birdsville. The Kenworth is pulling 3 trailers, or 6 decks, to be loaded with Channel Country bullocks. The truck makes its way out of Longreach and onto the long, narrow stretch of bitumen, heading south. Rob has worked with Gary Ballard for an accumulated 8 years, on and off as he puts it. He obviously prefers working with livestock to other forms of truck driving.
Well, with livestock, you're not on one particular run all the time. You're just loaded, various places, and basically all over Queensland and the territory, and you'll be not running on one road all the time constantly. You're going to different places to load and unload. Through the middle of the year with the sales at Longreach, we've got cattle sales there every week, so, in the middle of the week you're carting into the sales, and after sale you'll be carting out the sales, which could take you anywhere, but mainly down south and that. Then plus you've got the company work that you do from the Channel Country here. The majority of them go to feedlots, like down south or to the Longreach rail header. From one week to the next, you really don't know where you're going to end up, and because you're not on any particular, route every week, eh?
The Kenworth has joined up with Gary Ballard's son, Ross's truck, also heading to Roseburg to load. A short stop is made at Junda while tyres are checked. After crossing the Thompson, the trucks leave the sealed road and head into the dirt. Working in these remote areas, drivers have to build up a diversity of skills.
Yeah, well, with working out west here, well, you basically got to be a mechanic and do all your own maintenance. We do all our own maintenance as well, so you got to have a bit of knowledge of mechanicals and whatever, right?
There's a brief respite at Windora, and then the trucks head out with the benefit of sealed road again for a short period. There's time for a final tyre check at the point of leaving the sealed road. We won't be seeing bitumen again until we return to this point fully loaded tomorrow. Ross Ballard has a couple of willing helpers checking the tyres. His wife Janelle and 2 of the children have joined him for company on this trip. As the evening settles, there are no roadhouses in this remote region.
Yeah, well, it is like travelling out on these roads. You do have to cook up anyway because there's sort of no roadhouses or anything, but the lifestyle, yeah, it's more enjoyable. You pull up and cook a feed and everything, and it would be more laid back than run in express up and down the coast somewhere.
That appeals to you?
Yeah, I like that sort of lifestyle. I don't think I could handle running down south, you know, especially on the tight schedules they stick to and that, and traffic, in amongst a lot of traffic and that.
And at the end of the day, beside a road that is little more than a track, 150 kilometres from the nearest habitation, we cook up dinner. And it beats most truck stops that you're ever likely to walk into. After dinner, the night promises little, other than a lot of slow, rough miles and perhaps a few hours' sleep at the yards before loading begins at daylight. Gary Ballard is the driving force behind Ballard Transport. He's been in trucking all his life.
I used to drive for Longreach Transport here, and I bought a truck off him and started on my own. Just a 2-deck unit it was, 2 open decks. Just started from there. Oh, I used to mess around with cattle too. When I first kicked off, I bought cattle when they were down when the slump was on, and then the markets kicked me out a few, so that sort of kicked me along a bit. We got 30 decks here now of cattle. Ross, his young unit here, works with us, 6-deck unit, and I got 24 of our own.
Ballard Transport has a name for running good gear, and Gary proudly shows off his latest acquisition, a new Mack Titan.
This is a new one. We haven't even had time to get it painted our colours at this stage. When I picked it up, we wanted it in a hurry. I traded the other one in. But yeah, I really think this thing for comfort for a driver, and today you need all that anyway, like this power pack here. It's got your 240-volt power for when you stop, for your air conditioner for when the driver's having a sleep, you know, them sort of things now are just out on their own, I reckon. And the comfort in this thing, the way it's decked out, you know, you can hook the fry pan, jug, whatever you like, you know, it's as neat as you can get, I would reckon. Why not put them on them chassis on the outside?
After a long night on rough roads, the trucks are at Roseworth Station, and as soon as it's light enough to see, the loading process begins. Overnight, the 2 Ballard trucks have been joined by 2 subcontractors needed to make the 20-deck cattle lift. These fat bullocks will go from here to Longreach on the trucks, and from there to the coast by rail. After slaughter, the meat will go to Japan. These 500-kilogram bullocks are much heavier than the live export cattle we saw on Victoria River Downs. The cattle load well, urged on by the young stock workers and the manager of his family property, Jeff Morton. The role of a stockman was once the domain of men and boys, but today that's all changed and gillaroos are seen on most bigger properties. The trucks are loaded and parked up, ready to go, but the Mortons take the drivers over to the stock camp first for a cup of tea and breakfast. And it's time for the long haul north to Longreach. The trucks labour under the heavy loads of the big bullocks.
Yeah, this road at the moment, yeah, it's got cut up pretty bad, sort of, Birdsville races there last week, so yeah, it's cut up pretty bad to what it was before the races. But the majority of the roads, you know, at the moment is pretty reasonable, yeah.
At the first tyre check, one of the subcontractors' trucks has a flat tyre. This is the first of many flats for the day. The temperature soars towards 40 degrees. Drivers like Rob Morton don't have much time off to look forward to, even after a long run like this.
You know, if we're not going away again until, like, we'll unload late tonight. We're not going away again till Sunday, but, like, we won't have tomorrow at home. You know, there'll be repairs to do and servicing and all that before you go again. This particular run here, it's just a fraction over 700k. Well, that'll take about 12 hours by the time we get to the railhead at Longreach. Time-wise, you do a lot more hours, more than kilometres in this sort of job, because a lot of the work's pretty slow. You know, like at the moment, we're probably only averaging 50 kilometres an hour. We'll probably do that for about the first 5 hours of this trip.
Another roadside tyre check, and there are more flat tyres to mend. The Ballard trucks are refuelled. Diesel is pumped under air pressure from big belly tanks under the trailers to the prime movers.
Worn out trucks all.
And the trucks retrace their tracks of yesterday. Through Windora, the little cattle town on the Cooper. Over the Thompson. And through Junda. It's getting on for midnight when the trucks pull into the rail yards on the outskirts of Longreach. The bullocks are unloaded and will be fed and watered before being loaded once more onto rail trucks for their long journey to the coast. It's an unseasonably wet morning when we visited Longreach Transport Company, a business operating from a back lane in the small town. This is an operation with a difference. The main truck is a veteran 14-year-old Macks superliner rather than a shiny new expensive rig, complete with high repayments. Dave Bielenberg runs the two-truck transport service supplying livestock services from Longreach. The business has a history tracing back 3 generations to the days of Cobb & Co coaches. The plans are to load 24 decks of sheep from an Outback property tomorrow morning. But the rain has brought dark clouds over these plans. So Dave uses the internet to access the Longreach Met Department's radar. A line of violent summer storms has passed overhead, and Dave says tomorrow morning should be clear in the Blackall district where the sheep are to be loaded. Dave Bielenberg has built a good name for the careful transport of sheep, but the sheep industry has drastically changed over the past decade.
After the wool floor price was removed, we had a big wet that year, and that sort of nearly wrecked most of the carriers around the place and changed things a fair bit. But since then, It's been a very slow recovery, and there was sort of 10 road trains carting sheep from Longreach in that period. Whereas it come back to, for a while there last year there was 1, now there's 2. That's servicing Longreach. But the thing now is that most of those sheep, when they're sold, I think the grazier's happy just to sell them on the property and just wash his hands of them and get rid of them.
Dave's internet forecast proves correct, and before daylight we're ready to start loading at Athol Station, a property renowned for running high quality sheep. As soon as it's light enough to see, Dave Bielenberg reverses 2 of his 3 4-deck trailers to the back loading ramp.
The people that are doing well are probably the northern cattle blokes, and as they're coming down they're buying more country out here, they're buying it for the grass because we've had a good year this year, and as they come down they just get rid of the sheep. Most of those sheep either go to slaughter, and that country's just made into cattle country.
Here, it's the end of an era. With collapsed world wool prices over the past 10 years, Athol has been purchased by a cattle producer, and that means the tens of thousands of sheep have got their marching orders. Stockmen and their canine offsiders are keen in the cool temperatures of early morning. One by one, the 4 decks of Dave's dedicated sheep trailers are loaded. The sheep have a reputation for difficult loading, and mobs of ewes and lambs like this are as difficult to load as any. But plenty of hands see the sheep start to flow more or less smoothly up into the truck. With the first trailer loaded, Dave pulls off the ramp, and the second truck of this 24-deck lift swings into reverse to the ramp. Dave Bielenberg drops the loaded trailer and hooks up to his previously unattached third trailer. The second truck is one of Gary Ballard's, an old superliner still finding work in tipper and short and medium haul livestock work. When loaded, driver Stephen Harris pulls off the ramp, and Dave once again reverses the double outfit. Not an easy accomplishment. While many operators have sought the latest in transport technology, the engine room of Dave's business is a 14-year-old Macks superliner.
Oh, it's just an 86 model superliner. Built about March 86. It's been going pretty good ever since, and until about 1 million kilometres it put a conrod through the block for unknown reasons, and put a new motor in it, put a 525 in it and an 18 speed gearbox at that time, and it's been going for about another nearly 700 kilometres since then, and hasn't been touched in the last 700. Basically been pretty good.
There's a mixture of emotions to see the sheep leaving. His second trailer loaded, Dave again pulls away as the Ballard truck plays its role in this dusty ballet. The loaded trailers are dropped in line ready for the final hookup. Dave wheels his empty lead trailer, the last to be loaded, back to the yards. The loading process takes more than 5 hours. The cool of the morning has developed into the heavy heat of a November day. Livestock and stock workers slow with the heat. At last Dave reverses the single trailer to the ramp. An easy job compared with backing the doubles. Handling sheep is a job scorned by many. Dave Bielenberg approaches it in a quiet manner.
No one who carts sheep never gets agitated. They always get agitated. There's no such thing. If you don't get agitated, you say you're a liar. But it's just patience. And when you're young, you sort of run in, you think you can do everything in 5 minutes, and then as time goes on, you realise you can't. Yep. There's no point in trying to bash one or anything, because as soon as you do, you're knocked up, and he's still smiling at you because he's in a woolly coat, and he doesn't sort of worry him too much. And you look back and there can be a couple more thousand to come.
Where'd you get the idea for the knee pads from?
Had a bloke come offside with me one day and he wanted a pair, and I thought they looked a bit sissy and I didn't worry about them. One day in desperation I put them on, and now I carry 2 or 3 pairs in the truck with me. And I wouldn't do without them. Might be getting soft, but my knees are getting softer.
With the sheep loaded, it's time to hook up. The lead trailer is reversed onto the second trailer. The ring feeder slams shut. Air lines and electric cabling connected. Dolly drawbar stand secured. And now the 2 trailers are reversed onto the third. Backing a double is difficult in the extreme. Get this wrong and it can lead to 20 minutes of cursing and temporary insanity. Three trailers, 12 decks of sheep, 120-tonne combination ready for the 250-kilometre leg to the destination, another outback property near the town of Ilfracombe. It's more than 40 degrees centigrade on the road, and the trucks are distorted through the heat shimmer, making them wobble like jelly. To efficiently run his business, Dave Bielenberg has a full set of trailers for sheep and another full set for cattle. While this gives him the versatility he needs, increased registration costs are one of the main threats to business viability.
All up for my one outfit, and I've got another old yard truck which is sort of not worth selling. Pay about 24 grand.
Just in registration before you turn a wheel?
Yeah, that's just for my main truck plus my yard truck, which does about probably 20,000 a year at most.
The trucks pull up and the drivers check the sheep and have a quick break at a roadhouse in the outback town of Blackall. I asked Dave if owning an older truck outright was a business proposition in these days of 600 horsepower and fuel-efficient trucks.
I'd spent so much money on it that I sort of had to keep it for a little while just to justify that expense. But the thing about it is it's got a good rating, it's got a good rear end in it, got the Renault rear end, and it handles well, drives well, and I just had no real major reason to go back into debt so far, so quickly.
Ilfracombe simmers in the mid-afternoon heat. Here lie trailers that made up one of the first road trains of the early 20th century. This is the destination for the sheep, and the trucks pull through the tiny town and drive the short distance to the station where they'll be unloaded. Our journey ends here, and as we leave, the trucks and drivers we've met in this program, along with hundreds of other road train operators, continue making a mile across remote Australia. They and their trucks are the very glue binding the remote communities of Australia's outback together.